Welcome to KCS West. At this and all KCS West projects, your safety and the safety of all others is our top priority. This brief orientation will provide you with the basic information you'll need to ensure that as a team, this project is completed without incident. This orientation is not designed to provide safety information for each trade or task, but rather a general overview of basic safety rules, policies, and procedures for this project. For information regarding task safety, please contact your company's safety professional or your direct supervisor. Please refer to your handout for information regarding specific items for this project. Upon completion of the orientation, you'll receive a sticker for your hard hat. That sticker is our way of verifying that you've attended while you're out on site. If your sticker comes off or you replace your hard hat, see the superintendent for a new one. Anyone entering the project for the first time must report to the office trailer and receive an orientation. Workers will receive this orientation. Visitors will receive a shorter version. Workers and visitors must sign in at the guard shack every time when entering the project. This includes visitors from your company, vendors you may use, and representatives from any subcontractors you may be working with. Feel free to follow along on your handout sheet. Let's talk briefly about what to do in the event of an emergency. Emergency information is posted in the office trailer. This information includes contact information for project personnel, including the superintendent, project manager, and safety representative. Should an emergency occur on site at any time, the superintendent must be informed immediately. If the superintendent is not on site at the time, report the incident to any company personnel on site. The address, phone number, and directions for the nearest emergency medical center are posted in the trailer. Printed maps are available for your use. Please make a note of them before you leave today. If you are witness to any near miss, injury, or incident, you must inform the superintendent. If the accident or injury is serious, call 911 before reporting it. If you can send another worker to provide notification so that you can stay with the injured worker, do so. Do not provide first aid if you are not properly trained, and do not provide aid beyond your training. In the event of a physical emergency that would result in an evacuation of the job site, immediately stop all work, shut down any equipment you may be operating, and calmly proceed to the muster area. Primary and secondary muster areas will be marked with a sign and are typically located near the front gates or office trailer. The person leading this orientation will point out the current location of all emergency muster areas. As you walk to the muster area, notify those around you that appear to have not received notification. Assist others in evacuation if necessary. The primary and secondary emergency gathering areas may change as construction proceeds. The company will provide notification to all personnel when these areas change. Following an evacuation notice, do not leave the project until told to do so by KCS West or your supervisor. Do not return to work until the all clear is given and you are directed to by the superintendent or your supervisor. Personal protective equipment. Anyone walking through or working on the site is required to wear a minimum amount of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Additional personal protective equipment is based entirely on the task being performed. At a minimum, all workers and visitors must be equipped with and wear the following: a hard hat, safety glasses, long pants, boots, and high visibility clothing. All workers and visitors walking through the site must wear an approved hard hat. Hard hats must be worn at all times you're in active construction areas, regardless of whether or not there are overhead hazards. Hard hats may be removed for breaks and lunch, unless other trades are working in the area. No metal hard hats will be allowed on site. Adequate work boots are required by all persons entering the active site. If you will be operating equipment such as jackhammers or whackers, metatarsal guards must be worn. All personnel who will be walking through active construction areas must wear high visibility clothing of some type. Orange or neon yellow lime green t-shirts are acceptable, as long as they are the outermost layer of clothing and additional protective clothing is not required by the task that you're performing. Short sleeve shirts are acceptable unless your task creates hazards to bare skin. If working around moving heavy equipment or moving traffic, approved traffic vests must be worn. Safety glasses meeting ANSI standards must be worn at all times you're working or walking through construction areas. Dark lenses may only be worn outside the buildings. When working inside, please wear clear lenses. Other PPE may be required based on the activity being performed or conditions caused by other contractors. Gloves must be worn when you are handling sharp objects or performing other tasks that could cause hand injuries. Cut gloves may be needed depending on the exposure. Chemical-resistant gloves must be worn when handling hazardous chemicals. If working in areas with high noise levels, earplugs or muffs must be worn. Respirators must be worn whenever workers are exposed to hazardous airborne contaminants. If respirators are worn, your company must be able to provide verification of your respiratory protection training and your fit test. Fall protection. Falls from heights account for the vast majority of serious injuries and deaths on construction sites. The company strictly enforces a 100% 6-foot fall rule. That means anytime you are working at a height of 6 feet above the ground or another level, or within 6 feet of an exposed edge at a height of 6 feet or higher, you must be protected from falls. There are many different ways to protect yourself from a fall. Guardrails, warning lines, and personal fall arrest systems are all used on KCS West projects. When using a personal fall arrest system, the anchorage point must be able to support a 5,000-pound load. You should tie off as high over your head as possible, and you should calculate the fall distance. A fall arrest system does no good if you'll hit the deck before it starts to work. When a situation develops that requires you to work at heights, it is expected that you will not proceed with the work until adequate fall protection is in place. If you have questions or don't know which system to use, how to use it, or what to tie off to, ask. Disregarding fall protection rules is grounds for immediate removal from the project. Impalement hazards must also be protected, and yes, that includes form stakes. Hazard communication. Hazard communication regulations emphasize workplace safety and requires employers to inform their employees of the hazardous substances they may be exposed to at the job site. As many different contractors will be working on this project, we must work together to ensure that all trades are informed about the hazards one may cause to another. This effort is coordinated through KCS West. All subcontractors must submit copies of safety data sheets for hazardous chemicals they will be using to the superintendent. Be aware of what other trades in your work area are doing. If you see workers in the area wearing respirators and you smell chemicals, leave the area and find out what it is they're using. There's a reason that that crew is in respirators. Just because you're not performing that task does not mean you're not at risk of being exposed. All containers of hazardous materials must be properly labeled and stored. Putting chemicals into unmarked containers is never allowed on this project. Speed limit and moving vehicles. The speed limit on this project is 5 miles per hour and is strictly enforced. Seat belts must be worn in all vehicles and heavy equipment at all times. This includes forklifts. When walking through the project, keep an eye out for moving vehicles and equipment. Before crossing into the path of any vehicle, make eye contact with the driver or operator. Make sure he or she sees you before walking into their path of travel. Never walk behind equipment without first making sure the driver knows you're there. If you're operating mobile equipment or vehicles, keep an eye out for workers who may not be paying attention. Be prepared to stop operations if necessary. When backing up, make sure you can see what's behind you. Use a spotter if needed. Do not use your cell phone while driving or operating heavy equipment. And no earbuds or headphones while you're operating, please. Park only in designated areas. We encourage carpooling to minimize the number of vehicles on site. Okay, let's go over some basics. Electrical. Cords and power tools must be inspected on a regular basis. Damaged cords and tools should be immediately removed from service. If they cannot be locked up to prevent further use until they can be repaired by a qualified person or removed from the project, you'll need to put a tag on the cord or tool that warns others that it is damaged and cannot be used. No home-style power strips or extension cords that are not rated for hard or extra hard use are allowed to be used for construction equipment and power tools. If your job requires you to lock out and tag out equipment, ensure you have the proper training from your employer to do so. Please don't remove locks and tags that aren't yours. Tools. All hand and power tools should be inspected daily prior to use. Any tools found to be defective must be removed from service immediately and kept secured until they can either be repaired by a qualified person or removed from the site. If they cannot be secured, please place a tag stating "Danger, do not use" or similar language on the tool. Guards on all rotating tools such as grinders and saws must be in place for use. Powder actuated tools may only be operated by properly trained and qualified workers. Tools should be kept unloaded and under lock and key when not actually in use. Fire prevention. Fire extinguishers for general use are placed throughout the project. These are to remain in place unless actually used to fight a small fire. Trades who perform hot work of any kind are required to provide dedicated fire extinguishers for that activity. All fire extinguishers on site must have a tag indicating they have been serviced within the past 12 months and must be inspected at least monthly. If you must use a fire extinguisher, use the PASS system. Pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the flame, squeeze the handle, and sweep from side to side. Do not attempt to fight a fire that is too large to put out with a portable fire extinguisher. Don't attempt to fight a fire if you feel uncomfortable doing so. In either of these cases, notify others in the area and evacuate. KCS West must be notified anytime a fire extinguisher is discharged. Flammable liquids such as gasoline and diesel must be stored in proper containers. Plastic gas cans are not allowed at any time on this project. Compressed gas cylinders must be kept upright, secured, and stored properly when not in use. First aid. Each subcontractor shall have, as part of their crew, at least one person trained in first aid CPR with a valid card. While first aid supplies are available in the office trailer, each subcontractor must have a properly stocked first aid kit available for use by their employees. Every injury requiring first aid must be reported to KCS West immediately. Heat illness. Each subcontractor is responsible for having a written heat illness prevention plan that meets or exceeds Cal OSHA standards. Although water is always available in the trailer, adequate water and shade must be provided by each subcontractor for its own employees. Workers should be encouraged to drink plenty of water throughout the day and stay hydrated. Download the OSHA Heat app for detailed information on heat illness prevention and treatment. Heavy equipment. Heavy equipment must be inspected daily prior to use. This includes forklifts, scissor lifts, and boom lifts. Equipment and lifts found to be defective in any way must not be used until repaired by a qualified person. All operational alarms must be working. Do not leave the seat of a lift or other equipment with the engine running. When idling, the equipment should be placed in park or neutral and the parking brake set. Never leave the seat of a forklift with an elevated load, and never leave the seat of a forklift with the engine running. Housekeeping. Slips, trips, and falls are the leading cause of minor injuries on any construction site. These can be prevented simply by keeping your work area clean and orderly. Housekeeping must be performed on a daily basis or throughout the day if your activities create a lot of debris. It is every worker's responsibility to clean up after themselves at the end of each task or at the end of the day. Ladders. Ladders must be inspected prior to use. Damaged ladders should be removed from service and either destroyed or removed from the job site. Do not repair broken or damaged ladders. Do not use step ladders for accessing other levels or platforms, and never stand on the top 2 steps of a step ladder. Straight ladders must be set up properly at a 4-to-1 angle and must be secured. Straight ladders should extend at least 3 feet above the landing of the ladder. You do not need to tie off while working from a ladder unless you're working near a leading edge, next to guardrails, or over dangerous conditions below you. Lifts. Before operating a scissor or boom lift, you should be properly trained by your employer to operate that particular lift. When operating a scissor lift, make sure the end chain is secured or other barriers are in place. You do not need to tie off when operating a scissor lift. A personal fall arrest system is required for operating boom lifts. Anchor to the point provided by the manufacturer. When in a lift, never stand on anything other than the basket or the floor of the lift. Do not use ladders or buckets to stand on, and never stand on the guardrails of any lift. Once in the lift, don't exit it while it is elevated. Lighting. Each subcontractor performing work must provide sufficient task lighting in poorly lit or dark areas to meet or exceed Cal OSHA standards. If string lighting is used, all cages must be in place and all sockets must have a bulb. Lighting strings should be secured overhead, out of reach, and secured with non-conductive materials such as zip ties. Scaffolds. Each scaffold must be erected under the direction of a qualified person and inspected and maintained daily by a competent person. Competent persons must have documented training qualifying them to perform such inspections. Scaffold components and planking must not be moved or altered without direct supervision and direction from the competent person. Guardrails must be in place at all times, and all scaffold levels must have at least 2 planks. If guardrails must be removed for any reason, a personal fall arrest system must be used for all workers exposed to falls of 6 feet or higher. Slips, trips, and falls. This project has same level and elevated fall hazards throughout the site. To minimize your risk of injury from a slip, trip, or fall, use appropriate footwear. Do not run. Be aware of your surroundings and changes in terrain, and do not wear dark tint safety glasses in low-lit areas. Again, housekeeping plays a vital role in preventing slips, trips, and falls. Smoking, including the use of e-cigarettes, is allowed only in designated areas. Substance abuse. The possession, consumption, distribution, sale, use, or transportation of alcohol or controlled substances is strictly prohibited on KCS West projects. There will be no warnings. If found to be in violation, you will be asked to leave the project and you will not be allowed to return. Trenches and excavations. Trenching and excavating will need to be coordinated with KCS West personnel. All underground utilities must be located and identified prior to digging. Trenches and excavations must be inspected daily prior to anyone entering and after any event that could affect the integrity of the trench. When trenches or excavations reach 4 feet deep or deeper, An access ladder must be installed at least every 25 linear feet. When they reach 5 feet deep or deeper, protective measures such as shoring, sloping, or benching must be used. If soil conditions indicate a cave-in is possible, protection measures must be used regardless of depth. Environmental concerns. All storm drains must be protected. Dispose of hazardous substances properly. If you're not sure how to dispose of something, contact your supervisor or the superintendent. Chemicals must be stored properly in proper containers and properly labeled. Clean up spills immediately. If the spill is too large to be cleaned up by yourself, notify the project superintendent and evacuate the area if needed. Let's recap the highlights. Number 1, sign in daily at the guard shack. Number 2, handle emergency situations calmly and use common sense. Report all incidents and injuries immediately. Number 3, don't perform tasks you're not qualified or trained to do. Number 4, wear all appropriate PPE for the task that you are performing. Number 5, keep your work area clean and orderly. Number 6, use fall protection whenever working 6 feet above a lower level or closer than 6 feet to a leading edge. Number 7, listen to your body as far as heat illness is concerned and stay hydrated. Number 8, if you're unsure of how to perform a task or have any questions, ask. Number 9, watch your footing when walking around the project. Slip, trip, and fall hazards are the most common cause of injury on any job site. Number 10, finally, make sure you receive your project orientation sticker. I know we gave you a lot of information. Much of it is plain common sense. KCS West cares greatly about your safety and the safety of everyone on this project. Working together, we can ensure a safe project where everyone goes home in the same condition in which they arrived. Our goal is an incident-free job site with proper communication, planning out tasks in advance, asking questions when needed, using basic common sense, and working together, we can achieve that goal. Again, welcome to the project. If you have questions I haven't answered or are unclear on any policies and procedures, please talk to your supervisor or the KCS West superintendent. And please, be safe out there. Your family is counting on it.